Greetings everyone, and welcome back to Pleasures Deliciously, a channel with simple recipes and drinks for the home cook. I'm Jay and I'll be your host today. It's that time of year again, the holiday season. By far the most popular holiday dessert is homemade pumpkin pie. And who can blame anyone for including this classic dessert on the menu? Its spicy and rich flavors remind me of sitting by a warm, crackling fire without a care in the world. We're going to make our crust from scratch. We'll also make our filling from scratch using roasted sugar pumpkins. Let's get into the holiday spirit. Grab that rolling pin and those pumpkins so we can make pumpkin pie just like Grandma and pleasure our holiday guests deliciously. And as always, if you enjoy this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and comment. And remember to hit that bell button so you can be caught up on our latest free recipes, tips, and giveaways. Okay fam, it's time to get into the recipe. First, I'll make the pie crust. For the pie crust dough, I will need 1½ cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 10 tablespoons of cold butter cut into cubes, 2 to 4 tablespoons of ice cold water. I place my flour into a food processor and add my butter. Now I add the salt. I toss the butter into the flour until I have dime-sized chunks of butter mixed into the flour. The amount of ice water I add to the butter and flour mixture will depend upon the heat and humidity in the air. I drizzle a small amount of water at a time and pulse until my dough just comes together. Now I turn the dough out onto a clean countertop sprinkled with flour. I form the dough into a ball and flatten it. Work quickly to keep the dough cold. I wrap my dough in plastic wrap and place into the fridge immediately to chill for at least an hour. However, the dough can also be stored in the fridge for up to 3 days or stored in the freezer for up to 3 months. While the dough is chilling, I'm going to prepare the pumpkin puree for the filling. I simply cut the stem portion off the pumpkin. Then I cut the pumpkin in half and scoop out the pulp and seeds. I place the pumpkin halves cut side down on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. Bake the pumpkin on 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes to an hour, or until the pumpkin is fork tender. Allow the pumpkin to cool for about 15 minutes. Once the pumpkin is cool to the touch, I remove the skin and cut it into chunks. The chunks go into the food processor and it's pureed until the texture is smooth. The pumpkin puree can be stored covered in the fridge for up to 3 days or in the freezer for up to 3 months. Now that the prep work is done, it is time to make the pie. For the homemade from scratch pumpkin pie, I will need chilled pie dough, 2 cups of pumpkin puree, 2 large eggs plus 1 egg yolk, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, 1/2 teaspoon of lemon extract, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1½ cups of heavy cream. First, I will place the pie crust into the pie pan. To do this, I'll roll out the pie dough on a floured surface until it's about 1/4 inch thick. I fold the crust into quarters. I gently lift the crust and place into the pie pan. I unfold the crust and gently press the dough down and towards the sides of the pan. I tuck any overhanging pie dough under. Then I flute the edges of the dough. I will chill the crust in the fridge while I prepare the filling. At this point, I will preheat my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. In a large bowl, I beat the eggs and the egg yolk. I add the brown sugar, spices, and extracts and mix well. Then I add the pumpkin puree and mix. I add the heavy cream and mix. I pour the batter into the chilled pie crust. I bake the pie on 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes. Now, I reduce the temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Quickly and carefully cover the edges of the crust with foil. I continue to bake the pie for about 45 to 55 minutes. When done, I allow the pie to rest for about an hour on a wire rack. Of course, no pumpkin pie is complete without a dollop of homemade whipped cream. And there you have it, fam! Homemade from scratch pumpkin pie. The spices mingle so beautifully with the pumpkin. The homemade crust adds a richness to the pie with an abundance of buttery flakiness. It's time to set the table with the pumpkin pie, and don't forget to crank up the holiday music. Even your grandma would join the carol, singing "It Pleasures Deliciously."